Hey, Cara. Hey, Brian. Welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hey guys.
Hey.
We are glad to have you guys here with us because you guys have done something that a lot of people hope to do, dream about doing, and that is you all paid off a bunch of debt. And we can't wait to hear all about your journey to debt freedom. But before we get into that, can you just take a moment and introduce yourself to everyone that's tuned in and let them know what you're all about?
Hey, I'm Cara, and
I'm Brian.
we live in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been married for 11 years, and we have 2 kids, one that's 5 and one that's 3.
Awesome. Love it. So let's talk about the debt that you guys paid off. You all were once in debt. You all had a lot of debt. Tell our audience how much debt it was and how long did it take you guys to pay it off? And also, what type of debt was it?
Yeah, so I mean, like there were several different spots or like that too. Like I think the initial, I want to say around like 40 something or like that, 40 or 50.
Mm-hmm.
And
like school loans and
yeah,
cars.
so and that was like school loans, credit cards, school loans, cards, credit cards. I think those are the main things. Maybe like a little bit of medical.
And then our
like
house
that.
too.
But then yeah, so
But obviously we
so like
didn't
that
do
was
that.
like the initial like thing was like just getting like that part of it or like that, and then we we received inheritance from my grandparents or like that, and then we were able to pay off our house. And so I want to say everything combined there was around 206 or something like that. So
That's awesome. We're going to definitely dig deeper.
So,
Love it.
So rewind the clock back a little bit, back when you were first starting, when you had the house mortgage, you had the cars, you had the credit cards, you had the student loans, all of it hanging over your head, and something triggered you all to say, I don't like the way this feels. We need to do something different. But what was it? How come you all didn't just keep on the same path you were on? What made you all decide to go in a different direction as far as getting out of debt in the first place?
you want me to answer? You want to?
Yeah, you can, and I'll elaborate if there's more.
So I mean, like I don't think it was like we never got to the place that I felt like like some people are like they're about to lose their house or like something like crazy like that. Like it's kind of like one of those things like you just like look at a thing and you could say, oh, we keep going further and further into debt.
Yeah.
And like so we knew we had need to do something about it. And we heard about Dave Ramsey a little bit. I'm trying to think if I'd even listened to his radio show before that.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But like actually, I know why, because our church every year they did like stuff with Dave Ramsey or like that. And we kept saying, yeah, we need to go through that or like that. And so it was kind of like one of those things like we weren't like at that point like we weren't like sold in or like that. Like I mean like the principles are really simple. Like it's not like it's like people don't know what to do. They kind of really know what to do. They just don't.
They don't want to.
They don't want to do it. Like it's sacrifice to do it. And you kind of need somebody that's motivational, like a personal trainer. It's gonna tell you, okay, these are the steps. Like actually get on to and say, what the heck are you doing? And so I would say like basically we got like enough to like get into FPU, and then like through FPU is like it's like
and inspired us to do
exactly.
more.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a family that financially it was always like a struggle getting by with my parents, and they always lived paycheck to paycheck, and I kind of grew up with that sort of like in my background. And so as soon as I found out about Dave Ramsey, I was like, we have to do something, and we need to, we should change our family tree. And so it's kind of like, it wasn't like he said, it wasn't like we were really, really horribly in debt. We had debt, but like, it was kind of like, we saw a light at the end of the tunnel, and we were like, okay, well, we're not going to be this way. Let's reach that next goal. And so that's kind of where it all started.
Yep.
Sort of.
So were you both on the same page in the very beginning? Like once finding out about Dave Ramsey or Financial Peace University at your church, were you both like, yeah, let's do this? Or did it take a little while for one of you to come on board?
Yeah, I think he was like, because he's the nerd and I'm a free spirit mostly, but 100%.
She was on board, but like she still had the things of like like it's like I want to go out to eat, and it's like, oh, sorry, there's no money in the budget, and it's just she'd like
he
sad
was the
about
mean
it.
one.
Yeah.
It's no, not the mean one, but it's I think we both were we sort of, as soon as we started paying things off, we started to realize, wow, this is like changing our lives.
Yep.
And it's like for the good, you
Yeah.
know, like it was like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
Yeah.
So
How did you all handle those moments when you all weren't seeing eye to eye? You wanted to go out to eat, and Brian's like, "Nah, we can't do it." Like, don't you? You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure that it wasn't like a over. I'm sure you didn't just say like, "Oh yeah, you're right. We need to stick to our budget." Like in the beginning,
Yeah.
talk
no,
to us about those tense moments and how you made it through.
Yeah, I don't know. It must have just been Jesus, because I don't know. Because I mean, it's not even like it's a big deal, but you know, when you're used to kind of spending money, it's hard for you to be like not spending money. And so like for me, it was a lot hard, and I would like get upset about it because our friends would go out after church, and I'm like, I want to go hang out, and Brian's like, we don't have any money to hang out this month, you know. And so
well, and to be clear, like we gave ourselves like, you know, like the whole thing, like Dave Ramsey, like no eating out or like that, like, you know, like we didn't go that extreme.
We didn't
like
do
that.
beans and rice.
Yeah,
you know?
and so like, you know, like I'd be like, I'd like talking to her, I'd be like, look, like we went out with him last week, like we'll go out with him like in our couple weeks, like we just can't do it every week.
I just am a very social person,
Yeah.
so it was more difficult for me. He's a more introvert, so.
So did you guys talk to your friends about this and your family about this? Did you guys let them know like your new goal and what you guys were trying to do? So were they also prepared?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I sort of faced more issues with my family. Not like horrible, but it was, you know, I would say things like, you know, as soon as we got to being debt free, like we didn't really talk too much about our journey, but you know, it was sort of like they would see it happening.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our goal at that time in our marriage was witnessing to our family. And we felt that like with us going through this, it was testimony enough. And it really, really spoke to them. Like, you know, people were like, what are you doing? That's awesome. You know, and they're, you know, and they wanted more information. But I know we definitely had like, I remember my dad one time saying to me when we were debt free, the house wasn't paid off yet. He told me that, I was like hurting the economy because I was debt free. And so I think, you know, like it wasn't, I mean, it kind of felt bad because you wanted your parent to be like, you know, supportive of you. And so I think that really hurt my feelings, but it kind of encouraged me to keep doing what I'm doing because I know that like in the end it was going to be amazing. So.
Wow.
But when that hurt, I mean,
it's not funny because that definitely hurts.
Yeah,
but
I'm
it's
like,
like, I
wait,
think
what?
I think I've heard it all. You know, like, whoa.
So, I mean, how did you handle that? Because there are people listening who are in the beginning phases of trying to get out of debt, and their social circle wants to go out. Their family's like, it doesn't take all that. And they're like at a crossroads of giving up or staying the course. So for you, I mean, that had to be like a gut punch from dad to say, you know what, you're really messing up the economy with your debt-free talk.
And that's probably something that he heard, or maybe he was taught as well. I don't think he was being malicious. I think he was really genuinely, you know, thinking about society, thinking about the government, all of this. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, more often than not, probably a lot of people think that way.
So how'd you bounce back?
I don't know. It's just, you kind of just have to take it with a grain of salt, you know, really, because I knew that like, and my dad is still in the same financial position that he's always been. And so, you know, I was like, obviously I learned what I learned financially from my parents' example. And so once I started doing things different, of course, like in a spiritual sense, that's more of like the enemy trying to attack you anyway. And so, you know, you just have to like, I mean, it hurt my feelings because I wanted my dad to support me. My mom, on the other hand, they're separated, but she was like, you know, she was all for it. And she, you know, she thought it was awesome. And, you know, currently we're going to try to find a class and put her into FPU as well, because she's been once and didn't finish it. So, she's always been really supportive. It was mostly like my dad, really. I think he's like the only person, because I don't think anybody in your family has really ever mentioned anything. Maybe your parents, just, but more positive stuff.
Yeah, and I would say that's the biggest thing is like, you know, number one, getting somebody in your, or, you know, a team in your corner like that's going to support you. So you have more people for you versus against. And then the other thing of just, you know, somebody that's going to keep you accountable or like that. Obviously, with us being married, it's easier. Like obviously, you have to live with a person. So, but yeah, it's a little easier there. But yeah, for sure, getting somebody that's going to keep you accountable is definitely a necessity in order to stay on track. Because I mean, especially just first starting out, that's the hardest part, because it's, especially if you're just hardly getting by, because that's the problem, right? It's like a lot of times people do wait until they get to the spot where like they're like barely making it, like it's, and so like trying to say like, oh, I'm gonna magically do these things and like get out of it doesn't work like that. So
talk about some of the tools that you guys used in order to accomplish this huge goal. I'm assuming a budget, but were there any tools per se that you can definitely recommend to those listening that have helped you guys along your journey?
Yeah, I mean, budget, like, and obviously when we first started, we were doing like the envelope systems and stuff like that. We pretty
Forgot
much
about that.
yeah, we've since like switched back mostly but what we have done is we kind of have like, for example, like our blow money is a perfect example of like we actually just set up separate accounts for it
and separate cards.
Yeah, and so that basically it's just like it's like that's the account and that's it. Yeah. So like it really like just kind of like segmenting like is a big thing of just making sure like that the money doesn't run off on you.
And some people really need like the envelope system, like really need it. But you sort of like when you go through, especially Dave Ramsey's course, and you learn about those things, not everybody does it like his way, per se. You just kind of find out something that works for the both of you, and then kind of work from there. So.
Yeah, did social media play a part? Were there any communities or podcasts or books, or like what was it that really kept you guys fired up along this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously listened to his radio show a lot. I'm trying to remember when he started doing the podcast, like, because obviously a lot of this goes back several years or like that. I'm trying to think what year he started doing the podcast or like that, but yeah, we went through FPU, and then he was listening to podcasts, and we also went through his legacy journey course as well, which I think that kept us like on fire for leaving a legacy for our kids, and kind of like brought us into, as soon as we were completely debt free, brought us into the place we're at now, which now we're sitting in a home that we paid for with cash this past May. And so kind of like, I think mostly Dave Ramsey stuff. He's kind of like for sure.
Yeah,
like,
he's our homeboy. So.
And I'm trying to remember. We've done FBU. We've led it twice.
Yeah, we were small group leaders a couple times, and then we were small group leaders for the legacy course. Our first go around through that. So it's kind of helped hearing other people's stories and other couples. Whether they're older, like we had people we were coaching that were like in their 70s or 60s, and then we had like college students, so like bachelors, sort of deal. So it was, I think, just like surrounding yourself with like-minded people, and that's really one of the major tools that's kind of helped us stay on track as well.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yep.
Now, how did you all tackle either cutting expenses or increasing your income? Because some people, like you mentioned earlier, Brian, they're like, well, how am I going to get out of debt? I'm barely making it right now. So, and it kind of stagnates them or prevents them even from taking a step. So what were some things that you all did practically that they could consider doing too?
Yeah, I mean, I think for most people, the number one thing is the eating out or like that. It's obviously it's more expensive to eat out than it is to just cook yourself. And then really even just groceries or like that, obviously we've since increased our budget for groceries or like that. During that, I'm trying to think.
We were doing couponing. Like we were doing I
want to say our budget was maybe like $250 or something like a month or something.
It was crazy.
Like looking at like what we spend now, I'm like, man, like like was super low or like that.
Yeah.
But like that is a good chunk of money or like that, and like if there. Some things, I mean, like, like maybe you can turn the lights off a little bit more like that, but like some things are just kind of like you can't do that much with it. You know what I mean? I guess, we've never had cable or like that.
Yeah.
But that's like another thing that would be.
And we even have Netflix now, and we split it with my sister, so we pay half.
Oh, we're cheap.
We're so frugal.
Yeah.
So it's like little things like that, I think.
So I mean, like obviously, everything is a balancer like that. So I mean, like obviously, like doing the budget, gives you that opportunity to say, okay, this is this, and like what else do I have in mind? I do like in Excel or like that, where I have like the percentage or like that. And I'll see like, gosh, like I'm spending like 30% of my income this month on food. It's like, that's like a lot of money. And so like it kind of, gives you a chance to, reevaluate like where you're spending your money or like that. And, so, that's obviously the reducing what you're spending. And then obviously the extra income or like that is
From
obviously
jobs.
a big thing as well.
He kind of like started, I mean, at one point, I think, I don't know what you were making a year. It was like 40 something.
Yeah.
45 or something.
Yeah.
And it was just like, we were just kind of, and now that we look back, we're like, wow, how did we like pay all this? Because we were paying a mortgage payment and, paying off debt and feeding ourselves. And granted, we didn't have a baby yet, but still, like it was, so it's just kind of like switching jobs. And, he's really good about, like he loves to learn. And so he's constantly wanting to grow. And so that kind of like prompted him to like look for different positions. And we never had like pizza jobs or things like that. But, like I worked at like a daycare and a gym and like, some odd end jobs before I could, and we were married right before the recession hit. And so like, I couldn't find like really any work. And so, but it's definitely, I don't know, we've learned a lot through the process. So
yeah, you do bring up a good point though about, a lot of people like, kind of just, like look at their situation like that they're kind of stuck where they are like that. And I guess this is another thing like with having like hope or like that of like, you are where you are right now, but that doesn't mean that's where you're going to be in like 6 months or a year like that. And, so whether that's like you learning like a new skill or, you're getting paid X, but really, the marketplace is actually really, worth more than that if you actually are willing to, look around or like that. Those are all things that, just kind of being mindful of what's going on or like that. So.
Love reading, but wish you had more time to get into your favorite books? What if you could use the time you already have and listen to the books you already love? Well, now you can with Audible. With Audible books, you can be inspired, entertained, and educated anywhere, anytime. Choose from the bestsellers in self-development, business, nonfiction, and more. So what are you waiting for? Your first 30 days are free. Visit hisandhermoney.com/audible to get started today. That's hisandhermoney.com/audible.
Now, you all have said how key the budget was to you all's ability to get out of debt. And Brian, you're the natural loving spreadsheet and percentages and sales and columns and rows. Cara, not so much, right? So to help people kind of have a realistic approach, because a lot of people try it, fail, and give up. How long did it take for both of you all to get on the same page with living out the budget? I mean, you had to hit some bumps, and then at some point, you all were seeing eye to eye. Like, talk about that process and how long it took.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was probably at least 3 or 4 budgets before it was like, because like, obviously like the first one and the second one are like the worst, because like you don't account for this, like you're way over, way under for things. And so you're adjusting it. But I would say like within like 3-4 months, like it was pretty good. I mean, like obviously there's still like things like, oh, I totally forgot about that or like that.
You're constantly adding things and taking things out. And,
exactly. It's it's a constant modification or like that of, trying to, okay, what's this month or like that. But it's for sure it gets way easier after I would say about 3 months.
Awesome. So were there any obstacles that you guys had to overcome along the way?
I mean, can you think of anything? The one I'm thinking of mainly is my health or like that.
Well, we could talk about whenever I had to get a car and we were debt free, but then we had to get back into debt and then pay that off.
You can explain that one.
Basically, I wasn't, I think, was I not working for a while? I think I was unemployed for a little bit. And we sold,
you're right.
We sold my car to my sister because she had moved up. And actually that's kind of an obstacle because I had
that's true.
That's and that kind of goes back to the stuff with my dad. My dad battled substance abuse. And so my parents went through issues, and so they were getting evicted. So this was a year after we were married. I think we had just started Dave Ramsey, maybe. Were we? Did we start it then? I think we did.
Really?
Yeah, we had started it. And so my parents moved in with us. And it was my parents and my younger sister, and then my other sister was already with us because I had moved her up beforehand. And so we struggled a lot with that, just added finances with extra people living with you and things like that. So then they all moved away and, carried on with their business. And then I ended up selling my car to my sister at one point. We went down to one car, which was kind of helpful, but I couldn't drive his car because it was a stick shift, and I'm not really good at that. I always stall out, and I get like freaked out, and I don't want to drive it. So, so we had one car for like a while. It was a long time. It was at least a year or so.
Yeah.
And then finally I got like a good job in Buckhead, and, we debated, we're like, okay, well, we can look at all these used cars, which the prices were so high, and we would drive these used cars and go to I don't even know, East Atlanta to try out these cars in this really bad area. And it would be making all this noise. And we're like, why are you selling this car for this much? So we struggled with okay, we don't want to spend a buttload of money on that. But then what is our choice? And so that was one of the obstacles. So, and that's one of the reasons why we couldn't do our debt-free scream on Dave Ramsey, because we kind of we're on track. And then we decided, we're like, well, let's just get a newer car. Because it was I think a couple grand extra for a newer car. And we were like, well, let's pay it off. But with the principles that we had, we knew, and we got dead set in our minds, we're paying this off. We paid it off in 6 months. And so, which is kind of a praise. But that was kind of a struggle, because it was kind of okay, Dave won't be happy with me, but kind of have to do
inner struggle of going back into debt after getting out of debt. That had to be a heck of a battle.
Yeah, it was 9 months of the, or 6, I guess 6 months.
6.
Yeah, 6 months.
And then in there, I think it was 5. Yeah.
So those were kind of a couple different struggles, but in different cases, things we had to kind of work through and kind of deal with.
All right, so you guys got out of debt, then bought a car, went back into debt, then got back out of debt, and then you moved on to the phase of your mortgage. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, pretty much. You can.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously before that was, actually, funny enough, it was really difficult getting the motivation a step before that of just saving up our emergency fund or like that, because it was kind of it just it's easier when you see it's easier when you're paying it off and now I'm no longer having to pay this interest and like that, but actually saving up the emergency fund I felt was really difficult because it was okay, we're just putting this money in the bank and it's just sitting there, it's not going to do anything. And so it was really hard to stay motivated there. And so I want to say it was actually right around the time we actually had finished that up, that we got the inheritance or like that. And, obviously wanting to be, what's the word?
Good stewards.
Yeah, good stewards. What my grandparents had given us or like that, we didn't do anything crazy with it. We basically paid off our house, paid a huge tithe. And then
I know, I was God, that was crazy. I took a picture of that.
And let's see, put away a little bit for kids for college. And
we invested the rest of it, I think.
That was pretty much it.
We didn't buy anything with it.
So I want to talk about that a little bit, because I think you guys bring up a very good point. Even in regards to this inheritance, we scream and talk about legacy. That is so important.
Totally.
And how the decisions that you make today are going to impact your legacy, your children, your children's children, good or bad, right? Because some bad habits are even passed down. And it's our job to pretty much, break that cycle. But I think that's so profound that your grandparents were thinking of you during their time and they were able to leave a legacy. One, were you guys expecting this inheritance? Was it a total surprise? And then two, talk about how important that was, that if your grandparents did not do that, where would you guys be today?
Yeah, it was a total surprise. Like we were dead set on saving and saving and saving and paying off our mortgage.
Yep.
And we had calculated, I don't know how many years it would have taken us to pay it off.
Yeah.
Probably at least over 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like put it this way, we definitely wouldn't be in the house we're in right now if it wasn't for that. I don't know where we would be. I mean, theoretically, I think we'd still be in our old house because. Oh yeah. Well, what we probably would have done, cause so this is kind of getting out of whatever, but the thing was the fact that we paid it off actually had a really positive effect of. Basically, Dave always says if you got out of debt with a mortgage, don't go back into debt with another mortgage or that. I mean, that was the thing. It was okay, we have, I don't know what the house was worth, say $150,000 paid off house. We can obviously totally go get another mortgage for a house twice as much or that. Any bank will do that. That's the easy thing or that. But because we, got that inheritance or that, it forced us to say, no, we're going to just sit here and pile up wads of cash.
Yeah, and, we wanted to honor, it was his grandfather, so we wanted to honor him, by doing that and using our money for that purpose. Because, that thought crossed our minds multiple times. We can just do whatever. We have good credit, it doesn't matter. But then we're like, no, we have to do what, what we're originally going to do. And so, but yeah, I mean, all in all, it was kind of a surprise to us. We didn't think, his grandmother, I think she was living off of some interest or I don't know what she was doing. I know. It was a trust fund that nobody really knew about until she had passed away. Yeah. That his grandfather had because he worked in advertising in New York City. So, but yeah, so it was crazy.
Wow. And I think that you guys deserve credit as well because I've encountered in my working days when I was working in a financial institution, so many people would waste and go through their inheritance like that. I mean, you'd be surprised, in a year's tops, everything was gone and they're back at square one. And I think that you guys actually using wisdom and as you mentioned, being good stewards, over what God blessed you guys with, because truly that's a gift. Another thing that we always teach as well too, we teach a class at our church and we always tell our students, we say, truly God will take your little and he will truly make it into much, right? But he wants to see that effort. Once you make that effort, you have no idea, we can totally relate to what you said as well, Cara, about, how do we even pay off this house? We were only making such as the numbers didn't make sense. It doesn't add up, right? It just doesn't add up. We were to put it on paper, but God truly has ways of favoring us and blessing us when we do become wise stewards and good stewards over that he's entrusted us with.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So has this inspired you all to want to create a financial legacy for your children or even your grandchildren?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think it all kind of goes back to the way, at least for me, the way I grew up and the way that my parents still kind of struggle. And, that in and of itself has really inspired me to want to leave more for my kids. And it's not just leaving a bunch of money, it's about leaving them with tools that they can use and ways that they can find wisdom. And for us, obviously being in the Word and knowing and reading Proverbs, I mean, it's straight up right in the Bible what you should do, and so it's just living by those principles and living your life for Jesus. I think overall, has really, it's caused a positive effect on us. And then we see that already with our kids and, that their lives are going to be way different and blessed, and God is so good. So
what's the biggest lesson about life in general that you have learned as a result of going through this whole process of becoming 100% debt free?
You gotta probably say patience.
Yeah.
You learn a lot of patience. I mean,
you sacrifice certain things in order to do other things.
Yep.
We were talking about earlier, couldn't go out to eat with our friends. Okay, well, oh well. That's one little small bump that we had to face.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely seeing how patience is rewarding. We've been able to, do so many things and start to give back to that. It's it's wow, this is awesome. So.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to say in regards to like the legacy or like that. Like obviously, of course, we want it for our kids, but we also, want a legacy as far as giving to others or like that as well. It's,
live to give.
Yeah, it's just definitely something that's big on our hearts. And trying to think where I was going with that. The other thing that was thinking of, so in regards to patience, like that is in my mind the biggest reason why we have a credit crisis or like that is the fact that people aren't patient enough. Like they just want it now, and that's the easy answer.
Yeah.
But the thing is like when you borrow the money, it's not like it comes out thin air or like that, right? Like you're just getting something that was supposed to be here, and you're bringing it here,
closer.
But now you're having to pay it for that full, actually longer because of the interest period of time or like that. And so, it's the quick thing, but then it's, really the slower thing, because now you're indebted for all that period of time. And then those are things you can't be doing with that money that you would have had otherwise. So.
All right, so talk us through the moment when you guys paid off your last date payment.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm assuming that you guys will have two, right? Sort of like when you pay cash for the home and prior to that.
So I mean, like, obviously it was cool, like with the inheritance or like that paying off the house. Like, like the thing is like that we felt like that was like something that was just given to us, like like. And that was the thing, was like
we didn't do much work for it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were paying our house, but like
totally.
we didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we were being good stewards, but at the same time, like that was just grace or like that, but like when we bought our new house, like that was like amazing. Like that was just, yeah, like, like we love our house. Like it's, like we're always like, God, I can't believe how blessed we are.
We drive
like,
up and we're like, whoa.
Yeah, I know.
And my daughter, she's 3. She's like, Mommy's house. I'm like, oh, that's right.
So how did that work though? You all paid off the other one. Did you sell it and then look for one? Did you move? And then like, how did you all go from one to the other?
We paid off our house in 2014. And so for 4 years we've been saving. And we kind of like, he touched on it a little bit with the whole patience thing.
Yep.
Like we could have gone out and gotten another house real quick, but then we wanted to be good stewards, and so we waited. Yep. And the housing market was kind of up and down, up and down. And then finally we ended up like, I think we sold ours first, and we closed on our house and the new place on the same day within a couple hours. Wow. So it's kind of like a tricky deal, but.
Which that is the one thing I was a little concerned about, and thankfully it worked out perfectly, was the whole thing of like, people like will just, they'll buy a new house before they even have sold theirs.
And we didn't want to do that.
Yeah. And
so like we wanted the funds.
And ours,
like,
we obviously want to have 2 mortgages, but we obviously we didn't want to get like a mortgage just in order of like, so we were like, okay, like this has to like work out. Like, cause like, once like you sign the contract, like for selling yours, it's like, okay, the house has to come on the market that we're going to buy in the next 30 days or like that, or really less than that.
I know.
It takes time to close or like that. So. But yeah, thankfully it all worked out.
And I know a couple of times we were like, well, we probably could get this small loan out if we wanted to get this house. And there was a couple, I kind of vlogged the whole experience. I did like this whole take on like house hunters on my YouTube channel. And so it was kind of like our version of house hunters. We were looking for houses. And so, like we found like a couple of houses were like, okay, that one's really great. But then it was like X amount more than what our budget would have been. And then it turns out it was even more than that. I think later on.
Well, to be clear, like we weren't going to go into debt for it.
No.
But like literally we would have been like everything. It's like all the chips on the table.
Yeah.
Like
so
that.
What if we wanted to fix up something? We wouldn't have any money left over. So it's kind of like one of those things.
Versus like this one. This one was, I want to say, about like around 15, 20 grand cheaper. And so like we did like a ton of stuff before we moved in, which worked out great because like, like all the floors and paint and all those things that like,
and we had the money to do it.
Oh yeah. Would have been difficult once we move in, or like that we were able to do before we even moved in, which is really cool.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So if there's somebody tuned in who is like super like happy for y'all, like, man, they did it, that's awesome, but then they start to reflect on themselves and their own journey, and they're like, I don't know if I can do what Cara and Brian have done. What words of encouragement would you offer to them if you had a chance to talk to them?
I would just encourage them to just keep going. You know, people are going to discourage you. You know, they're not going to believe in you. They're going to think you're weird. I embrace weirdness. That's who I am. And so it wasn't an issue for me. But, you know, like a lot of people in this world that we live in, there's a lot of lies when it comes to, you know, money and being debt free. And people are like, well, why you didn't like my dad? Why are you doing that? You're hurting the economy. And he said that to me on 2 occasions. And so it's like, you know, there's nothing I could do to change his mind, but instead be an example. And so I just want to encourage anybody that's wanting to do this to know that, like, you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to be really rough and rocky in some parts, but, you know, you just keep doing it. Keep being weird. Keep going for your goal, and you'll hit it no matter what. So.
And yeah, I mean, going off that, yeah, I guess the thing that keeps coming to mind, well, 2 things really. Number one, just, you know, obviously we always talk about, you know, how bad our situation is or like that. And at least the vast majority of people that are going to be watching this are like that. Like, you might think your situation's bad or like that, but you look at, like, compared to the rest of the world or like that, like, we are incredibly blessed. Yeah. Like, our needs are, like, you know,
in America,
yeah, like are all pretty much 99% wants. Like, it's, you know, I want a new phone, I want, you know, a new computer, I want X, I want Y. You know, it's like those aren't really things you actually need. And the second thing that came to mind was, you know, obviously you don't have a choice. You know, like you can go out there and keep doing dumb stuff and you're gonna get dumb results. Like, you know, like
pretty much.
Basically, you're going to go one path or the other. And like, it's not like somehow by you just ignoring it, it's somehow going to go away or like that. You're just going to make your problem even worse. So you might as well do something about it, like actually be smart with the money you have and try and make, you know, more money or like that to get out of your position.
All right. So you mentioned your YouTube channel earlier. So tell everybody more about that and how they can stay in touch with you.
Well, my YouTube channel is called The Lighty Life. It's pretty much, I started it 2 years ago, and I sort of got on this kick of whenever these family vloggers were a hit. And so I was like, well, I could do that. I could film my life. I've been doing videos my whole life, filming funny skits and stuff with my sister. So I just started filming my life. And so for the past, like, almost 3 years, it's been mostly vlogs. And then, you know, it's kind of followed just our life in general. Like I mentioned earlier, I have like a House Hunters parody-ish sort of series. And then we actually filmed, you know, kind of a story of how we became debt-free, how we paid off or bought our house with cash when we went to go, because we actually met Dave Ramsey this past August. So when we went to that road trip, we filmed that. So it's kind of like a combination of, like, you know, our faith and our family and financial stuff and weird, funny things, because I'm weird. So
awesome. We'll be sure to have it linked up in the show notes of this episode. Cara, Brian, this has been incredible. Great. Your story is super inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing it with our audience today.
Thank you.
Thank you.